Hello, in this video I'm going to recap for you the different index laws that you need to know. So first of all, I'm going to simplify x to the 4 times x to the 6. So for this one, we could, if we wanted to, write it out long. X to the 4 is the same as x times x times x times x. And x to the 6, I'm going to run out of room here, is the same as x times x times x times x times x times x. Okay, so I've got x to the 4 and x to the 6, and I need to times them together. So what I end up with is a really, really long timesing sum of x's. I've got 4 x's multiplied together here and another 6 of them here. So in total, I've got 10 x's being timed all together. And the way I write that in index form is x to the power of 10. Now you'll probably notice that the quick way of doing that is just to add the powers, okay? But the reason for that is essentially this is how long this string is, this is how long this string is. So when I put the two strings next to each other, the overall length is this plus this, okay? The rule for that is x to the power of n times x to the m equals x to the n plus m. As long as the two bases are the same, you get the same base on the end, and then the powers just get added together, okay? Right, here's a slightly more complicated example because I've got more than one letter and I've got some numbers going in as well. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to break it up and reorder it. The first thing I'm going to write in are the numbers. So I'm going to take the 2 from this one and the 3 from this one. So I've got 2 times 3. Now I'm going to do the x's. So I've got x cubed from this one and I've got x to the 4 from this one. And now I'm going to look at the y's. So I've just got a y from this one and I've got y to the 7 from this one. And now I'm going to put them all together. So I've got 2 times 3, which is 6, x cubed times x to the 4, which is x to the 7, and y times y to the 7, which is y to the 8. If you find it easier, you can write y as y to the power of 1, if that makes life easier for you. But this is going to be our final answer. When you get confident with these, what you can do is just think 2 times 3 is 6, x cubed times x to the 4 is x to the 7, and y times y to the 7 is y to the 8. But I would encourage you, if you're not 100% sure on this, to write it out just to make sure that you get them right as you go. I'm going to put up a few questions just like these two here for you to practice, and then I'll go through the answers in a minute or two as well for you. Okay. So there's 6 questions on simplifying indices with multiplication. Okay, so here are the answers. We need to do 9 plus 7 for the first one, and we get a to the 16. For the next one, we need to do 2 times 8, which gets us 16. And then the x's, we need to add the powers to get x to the 5. For the next one, we need to do 4 plus minus 2. When you add a negative, you go down the number line. So 4 plus minus 2 is 2. So we have b to the 2, or b squared. For the next one, 4 times 5 is 20. And then 3 plus 4 is 7. Next one, we add all those powers together because the base is the same, so we get c to the 24. And then finally, we need to do 7 times 2 times 3, or 7 times 6 if you prefer to think of it like that, and we get 42. And then for the powers, we add them together, 3 plus 4 plus 2, which is 9, so it's 42z to the power of 9. Okay, so that's how to do those multiplication questions. Now let's have a look at some with powers. So for this first one here, we have 3a to the 5, all inside brackets with a little power of 2 outside. What that power outside means is we're doing this bit inside times itself. So I'm going to write that out, and then it will become just like one of these ones here. So I'm going to write 3a to the 5 times 3a to the 5. And I would encourage you to write these out because a lot of people don't and get the wrong answer as a result. So now I have to do 3 times 3, which is 9, and a to the 5 times a to the 5. I add those 5s and I get a to the 10. What a lot of people do, if they don't write it down, is end up writing 6a to the 10 because they're thinking 3 times 2. So do avoid doing that. The best way I've seen to avoid doing that is to write it out long. It's worth it in an exam because it only takes 10 seconds and you will get marks because of it, okay, because you'll just guarantee you don't make any mistakes. So for the next one, we've got ABC to the 4 all squared. So that means 8bc to the 4 times 8bc to the 4. 8 times 8 is 64. B times B is B squared. C to the 4 times C to the 4 is C to the 8. So that's my answer for this one. There is a quick way of doing this. You can do the number to the power and then do, if you've got a power to a power, you can think of that as 1 times 2 and 4 times 2. But I would generally advise you to write it out long because then it becomes just like ones you already know how to do without having to add an extra law in there. But the law, if you want it, is anything to a power, you multiply the two powers together, which you'll see happening here. We've got a 10, which is 5 times 2, and here we've got the 4 times 2 and the 1 times 2. Okay, I've got a few of these for you to have a go at before we move on to the next type. There we go. Okay, and here are the answers for these. 25c to the 6, 64 d to the 15, 8 e to the 6 f cubed, 27 g to the 12 h to the 15, and finally 2 to the 4, which is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 16, j to the 4, k to the 20. Okay. Right, the next set of questions I want to go through are divisions. Okay, first of all, I've written up the first law we talked about here, an example of that. So a to the 9 times a to the 3 is a to the 12. We can rearrange any multiplication sum into a division. So if I had a to the 12 divided by a cubed, I'd have to get an answer of a to 9. So you can see here that when we times, we add the powers, but if we divide, we subtract the powers. 12 minus 3 gets us 9. So when you divide, you have to do a subtraction. Here's an extra example before I do the one with the minus in. Let's say I had x to the 20 divided by x to the 4. I'm going to do 20 subtract 4. I'll just put it up in another colour so you can see it. 20 minus 4 is 16, so I'm going to get x to the 16. Okay, next one. I've got to subtract the powers. 4 take away negative 5. I'm taking away a negative, which means I go up the number line, so I end up at 9. So I get b to the 9. If I've got numbers in as well, you can just do 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And then I need to do c squared divided by c cubed. So I need to do 2 minus 3, which comes out as c to the minus 1. Okay, so 4c to the minus 1 for that one. So the rule for this is subtract the powers. If you want a rule for that, x to the n divided by x to the m equals x to the n minus m. As long as the bases are the same, you can just subtract the powers. Here are some questions to do on division. So pause the video and have a go, and then play when you're done, and I'll go through them. Okay, here are the answers for these. So I'm going to subtract the powers and get a to the 4. When you have a fraction, that's the same as a division. So if you see b to the 8 over b to the 5, that can be rewritten as b to the 8 divided by b to the 5. So that comes out as b cubed. Again, 9 take 5 is 4. 2 minus 7 is minus 5. And e cubed divided by e, well, I can think of that e as an e to the 1. So that becomes e squared divided by e to the 6, which is e to the minus 4. Okay. Here are some more complicated division ones which have numbers involved as well. Have a go at these ones. Okay, so here are your answers. So first of all, 15 divided by 5 is 3. a to the 10 divided by a to the 4 is a to the 6. Next up, 6 divided by 12 is a half. And b to the 3 divided by b squared, 3 minus 2 is 1. So I can write b or b to the 1, half of b to the 1. Next one, 24 divided by 6 is 4. 6 minus 2 is 4. And 2 minus 3 is minus 1. And then the final one, 18 divided by 20, I can write as a fraction. In fact, I'm going to do that just above here so we can see how I can work with the fraction. So 18 over 20 is the same as 9 over 10, or 0.9. So you can write it either as 9/10 or 0.9. And then I've got to do e to the 7 divided by e to the 6, which becomes e to the 1, or just e. And then f to the 4 divided by f to the 7, which becomes f to the minus 3. Okay, so 9/10 e f to the minus 3. Do make sure when you do minuses that they're nice and clearly written as well.